So this is fuel pressure testing, and the first thing I'm going to show you is the fuel pressure tester, and that is a gauge and a whole bunch of hoses, so I'll demonstrate that to you now. Here's the fuel pressure test gauge, and on it you'll have PSI and KPA and a whole bunch of different fittings for all different kinds of vehicles so that you can fit onto the vehicle. Underneath that tray we have a bunch of hoses, and the first thing I'll show you is how we can connect the fuel pressure test port to our gauge. And so we have two things here. We just hold them up. You can see that there's different kinds of connectors to go onto the fuel pressure test port. You'll have to select the proper one. The next thing we'll look at is our pressure release hose. And so we've got the end on it that you can see right there, and we slide our quick connect in like that, and it just pops in just like a compressed air line fitting. It comes in and out just like that. We also have some other connectors that we can use if we don't have a compressed air, if we don't have a fuel pressure test port, then we can use this, and that just goes in line. We have to take the line off of the fuel rail and reconnect. There's two different kinds right here. And so we would also find a way to put the gauge onto the pressure release hose, and it just pops on with a quick connector just like that. So now we'll go to a vehicle. You need to first, in whatever vehicle you're doing, expose the fuel pressure test port. And so you can see our fuel pressure test port. There's a little cap on there that we'll take off. And then we will go get our fuel pressure tester. We've got the proper fitting because we've tried that already, and we wind it on there. It should spin on fairly freely. Spins right on. You got to make sure it's tight. Careful, because some of the hoses are plastic. We don't want to push too hard or bend things out of the way. Then we take our pressure release hose and we snap it on there. It's got a quick coupler. And we've got our gauge already hooked up to our hose. And then we'll go crank the engine over. You can see the gauge pop up like that. Now we didn't have to crank it over, actually we just had to turn the key and it should pop up. In this case it leaks down pretty quick, but now we're going to demonstrate to you another vehicle that does not have a fuel pressure test port. And we're going to use these quick disconnect tools, and we're going to use, you have to pick the right one for the vehicle, and you can find that out on ProDemand. And so in this case we're going to use the green one, and it just slides right onto this connector. They're all a little bit different. In this case, it took a little bit of fighting, so I'll speed up the video a little bit. It just takes a little bit of wrestling with it to try and take it off. If you're having trouble with this, just ask your instructor for more help. You can see that we have a tool from our kit that we're going to slide in, and that pops in there and snaps in. And then we're going to use the other end also, and that just snaps in place there. And then we will hook up our gauge to it. And we'll go through the same process that we did when there was a fuel pressure test port. We'll hook up the gauge with the quick connector, and then we would go to the vehicle and we would start the vehicle or just turn the key, and the gauge would pop up to whatever it's supposed to be, or maybe it's bad, and then you would drain it and disconnect it as you were supposed to on the other one.